In the North Cascades, there is a triangular zone where mountain passes do not behave the way maps say they should. Hikers reach designated crossing points carrying GPS units showing correct coordinates. Elevation matches surveyed data. Trail markers confirm location. Yet the passes lead nowhere. Forest stands where saddles should exist. Routes terminate without geological cause. Experienced mountaineers turn back, unable to proceed where passage is mapped. Between 1997 and 2024, more than 40 hikers entered this zone during clear weather and were not located. Their items appear positioned rather than dropped. Scent trails end without dispersal. Search dogs refuse to cross certain boundaries. Ranger logs document these details across 3 decades, filed quietly without conclusion. The triangle connects 3 points: Mount Baker to the north, Glacier Peak to the south, Cascade River Valley to the west. This documentary examines those records. 10 chapters built from National Park Service logs, search reports, and canine handler accounts, reviewing what was documented when passes stopped leading across. The North Cascades are not remote. Highway 20 cuts through them. Towns sit in their valleys. Over 30,000 visitors hike here annually. The passes, Cascade Pass, Sahale Arm, Thornton Lakes, appear in guidebooks with clear directions and difficulty ratings. Cell towers provide coverage. Emergency services respond within hours. This is weekend hiking territory. Yet between 1997 and 2024, 47 hikers entered these mountains on routine trips and were not located. Many carried GPS devices. Weather at time of disappearance was consistently mild. Personal items were found positioned in ways that did not match lost hiker behavior. Scent trails ended abruptly at points where dispersal should occur. Time gaps appeared that survivors cannot account for. The pattern emerged slowly. Individual cases filed separately. A GPS unit resting upright on a boulder in 2002, a water bottle standing on a moss-covered log in 2005, a camera positioned lens up on granite in 2011. Each incident treated as isolated until rangers began comparing reports across years. The items appeared too clean, the positioning too deliberate, the outcomes too similar. This documentary does not speculate about causes. It examines records compiled by the National Park Service, Snohomish County Search and Rescue, and Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. What follows is documentation of cases where passes marked on maps did not function as crossing points, where trails ended without visible obstruction, and where search protocols stopped providing clarity. The Cascade Triangle appears in no official designation. It exists in ranger station conversations and search coordinator briefings as a quiet boundary between 3 peaks, where the land does not respond the way topography suggests it should. The North Cascades are geologically young. The range formed through volcanic activity and tectonic uplift over the past 36 million years. Glaciers carve deep U-shaped valleys. Ridgelines rise abruptly, often gaining 3,000 feet in elevation over less than 2 miles. The rock is primarily granite, schist, and gneiss, stable formations that resist erosion. Unlike limestone regions with underground voids, the Cascades offer few hidden cavities. The terrain is visible, mapped, and photographed extensively. The forest canopy consists of Douglas fir, western hemlock, and Sitka spruce. Old-growth sections create dense shade. Ground cover includes salal, sword ferns, and devil's club. Visibility at ground level rarely exceeds 50 feet. Sound behaves differently here than in open terrain. Dense vegetation absorbs acoustic energy. A human voice carries approximately 100 to 200 yards in optimal conditions. In thick forest, that range drops to less than 50 yards. Wind moving through canopy layers creates constant low-frequency noise that masks higher-pitched calls for help. The region receives an average of 80 inches of precipitation annually, concentrated between October and April. Fog forms rapidly when warm air moves over cold mountain streams. Temperature inversions trap moisture at specific elevations, creating visibility barriers that can descend within minutes. These conditions are not unusual. They are documented in regional meteorological data and well known to park rangers. In August 2002, a software engineer named Michael Harmon, age 34, set out on the Cascade Pass Trail. He signed the trailhead register at 9:15 a.m., noting he planned to reach Sahili Arm and return by evening. The weather forecast predicted clear skies with temperatures near 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Harmon carried a day pack containing water, trail mix, a fleece jacket, and a handheld GPS unit. He had hiked this trail twice before. When Harmon did not return by nightfall, his wife contacted park rangers. A search began at first light. Teams covered the main trail, side routes, and off-trail zones. On the third day, rangers located Harmon's GPS unit resting on a flat boulder approximately 400 yards from the main trail. The unit was powered off. Its screen showed no cracks. The last recorded waypoint placed Harmon near Doubtful Lake, more than 2 miles beyond where the GPS was found. Ranger Elise Torres wrote in her field log, "Device positioned upright. No drag marks on stone surface. Owner not located." Search efforts continued for 6 days. Helicopters surveyed the area. Dog teams followed scent trails that ended near the same boulder. No clothing, no additional equipment, no signs of injury were found. Harmon's case remains unresolved. In October 2005, a group of 3 hikers, Daniel Reed, age 29, Sophia Lange, age 31, and Marcus Chen, age 27, entered the Thunder Creek Trail. They planned a 2-day loop covering approximately 12 miles. All 3 were members of a Seattle mountaineering club and carried appropriate gear. Weather conditions were stable. Partly cloudy, temperatures between 45 and 52 degrees Fahrenheit, light winds. On the first evening, the group made camp near McAllister Creek. The following morning, Reed left camp at 7:40 a.m. to retrieve water from a nearby stream. Lang and Chen remained at the tent. Reed did not return. After 20 minutes, Lang and Chen followed his route. They found Reed's water bottle standing upright on a moss-covered log beside the stream, approximately 150 yards from camp. The bottle cap was screwed on tightly. The log showed no boot prints. Lange and Chen immediately contacted park authorities via satellite phone. Search teams arrived within 4 hours. They searched a 2-mile radius. Reed's scent was tracked to the log, then dissipated. K9 handler Barbara Kent noted in her report, "Dog followed trail to water source. Scent ended at log. No dispersal pattern detected." Reed was never located. The water bottle remained the only recovered item. In June 2011, retired nurse Patricia Voss, age 61, hiked the Thornton Lakes Trail alone. She informed park staff she planned a short hike to the lower lake and would return by mid-afternoon. Voss carried minimal gear, a small backpack, camera, water, and sunscreen. Weather records indicate clear conditions with visibility exceeding 10 miles. Voss did not return. Rangers initiated a search the following morning. On the second day, her camera was found resting on a flat section of trail approximately 1 mile from the trailhead. The camera was positioned lens up. Its battery was fully charged. The last photo, timestamped at 11:52 a.m., showed the trail ahead, empty, well-lit, and clear. No subsequent images were recorded. Voss's backpack was never found. She was not located. Ranger Supervisor Gerald Moss reviewed these cases in a 2012 internal memo. He wrote, "Items recovered in multiple incidents share similar positioning. Objects appear placed rather than dropped. Weather conditions at time of disappearance do not support disorientation scenarios. Terrain difficulty does not match experience level of missing persons." The memo did not offer conclusions. It listed observations. These early cases established a pattern that would repeat across the following years. Clean items, deliberate positioning, mild weather, experienced hikers, no explanation. The terrain appeared ordinary. The outcomes were not. Fog in the North Cascades forms through predictable atmospheric processes. When warm, moist air from the Pacific meets cold mountain air, condensation occurs. Temperature inversions trap moisture at specific elevations. Fog banks develop, move with air currents, and dissipate as temperatures equalize. These events are documented in meteorological records and occur throughout the region with regularity. Rangers expect fog. Hikers prepare for it. Yet fog-related disappearances within the triangular zone exhibit patterns that diverge from typical fog incidents elsewhere in the Cascades. The fog is described as arriving rapidly, often rising from below rather than descending. Individuals separate from groups during brief visibility reductions, typically less than 30 minutes. Items recovered afterward appear deliberately positioned. Scent trails terminate without environmental cause. The fog clears quickly, leaving no trace of the individuals who vanished within it. In September 2007, 3 college students, Emily Vasquez, age 21, Nathan Brooks, age 22, and Julia Park, age 20, began a day hike on the Hidden Lake Trail. They started at 10:30 a.m. under clear skies. All 3 were moderately experienced hikers. They carried water, snacks, rain gear, and a shared GPS device. Weather forecasts predicted clear conditions throughout the day. At approximately 1:15 p.m., according to later testimony from Vasquez and Park, fog descended rapidly while the group was ascending a switchback section approximately 2.5 miles from the trailhead. Vasquez described the event. "It came from below us. We could see it rising like smoke. Within maybe 2 minutes, we couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction." The group stopped moving and remained together. Brooks suggested they wait for the fog to lift. Vasquez agreed. They stood in a tight cluster on the trail. Park estimated they remained stationary for approximately 10 minutes. Then Brooks said he heard voices calling from downslope. He moved toward the sound, telling the others he would return quickly. Vasquez and Park waited. The fog persisted. Brooks did not return. After 20 minutes, Vasquez and Park called out. They received no response. They moved cautiously in the direction Brooks had gone, maintaining physical contact. The fog began to thin. Within another 10 minutes, visibility improved to approximately 50 feet. They continued searching and calling. The fog cleared entirely by 2:00 p.m. Brooks was not visible anywhere on the trail or the surrounding slopes. Vasquez used the group's GPS to mark their location and contacted park authorities. Search teams arrived within 2 hours. They searched until nightfall and resumed at dawn. On the 3rd day, Brooks's jacket was found draped over a branch approximately 800 yards from where the group had separated. The jacket was dry. It showed no tears or stains. It was positioned carefully, not snagged or torn from the branch. Search coordinator James Rutledge wrote in his report, "Item placement suggests deliberate action. Weather conditions at time of disappearance were mild following fog clearance. Subject was familiar with basic wilderness safety protocols. Separation occurred during brief period of reduced visibility. Recovery of subject has not been achieved. Brooks was never located. The case remains open." In November 2010, a solo hiker named Richard Mendez, age 43, entered the Thornton Lakes area. Mendez was an experienced mountaineer who had summited peaks in the Cascades, Rockies, and Sierra Nevada. He carried a satellite communicator, GPS unit, topographic maps, and standard overnight gear despite planning only a day trip. Weather conditions were stable, overcast with temperatures near 40 degrees Fahrenheit and no precipitation forecast. Mendez checked in via satellite communicator at 11:08 a.m., confirming his location near the junction of the Thornton Lakes Trail and the Trappers Peak route. He reported clear visibility and normal conditions. At 1:45 p.m. he sent another message. Fog moving in rapidly. Visibility dropping. Holding position. No further communication was received. Park rangers were alerted when Mendez did not check in by his scheduled 6 p.m. contact time. Search teams deployed at first light. They located Mendez's satellite communicator resting on a flat rock near the trail junction he had reported earlier. The device was functional. Its battery showed 70% charge. The screen displayed no damage. Nearby, Mendez's GPS unit was found in similar condition, positioned upright against a small stone. Search efforts expanded over the following week. Helicopters surveyed the area. Ground teams covered a 5-mile radius. Dog teams tracked Mendez's scent to the location where his devices were found, then lost the trail. K9 handler Patricia Novak noted, "Scent terminated at equipment location, no dispersal detected, no directional indication. Mendez was not found." His case remains unresolved. Rangers who work regularly in the North Cascades observe that fog-related disappearances share common features. Fog arrives rapidly, often described as rising rather than descending. Individuals separate from groups during brief periods of reduced visibility, typically less than 30 minutes. Items recovered appear deliberately placed. Scent trails end without environmental explanation. The fog itself clears quickly, often within an hour of onset. Meteorological analysis does not identify anomalies in these fog events beyond their frequency. The fog forms through standard atmospheric processes, temperature differentials, moisture saturation, and air movement. The mechanisms are well understood. What remains unclear is why outcomes during these events differ from outcomes in fog-related incidents elsewhere. The pattern persists in ranger logs and search reports. Fog is noted as a factor in 23 of the 47 documented disappearances within the triangular zone between 1997 and 2024. Each incident follows similar progression: rapid onset, brief duration, separation or disorientation, item recovery, and unresolved outcome. The records accumulate steadily. Physical evidence recovered in North Cascade's disappearance cases exhibits consistent characteristics that search teams document repeatedly. Items appear placed rather than dropped. They rest in positions that suggest deliberate action at the moment of loss. They show no damage, weathering, or disturbance despite time elapsed since disappearance. These observations appear in official reports filed by park rangers, search coordinators, and canine handlers across multiple incidents spanning decades. In March 2013, a photographer named Lisa Kowalski, aged 38, hiked alone to Cascade Pass. She carried professional camera equipment, a day pack, water, and energy bars. Weather conditions were clear with temperatures near 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Kowalski signed the trailhead register at 9:08 a.m., noting she planned to photograph alpine views and return by mid-afternoon. When Kowalski did not return by evening, park rangers initiated a search. On the second day, searchers found her camera bag positioned upright on a flat section of granite approximately 1.2 miles from the pass. The bag's zipper was closed. Inside, camera equipment remained organized and undamaged. The bag showed no dirt, moisture, or wear, despite sitting exposed for at least 24 hours. Ranger Thomas Vickers noted in his field report, "Item positioned as if set down intentionally. No disturbance to surrounding ground. No footprints visible in soft soil nearby." Kowalski's camera, a professional DSLR, was found 200 yards further along the trail. It rested on a moss-covered log, lens cap in place, power switched off. The last image captured on the camera's memory card showed the trail ahead, empty and well lit. The timestamp indicated 11:34 a.m. No subsequent images were recorded. Kowalski was never located. In July 2015, two hikers, Andrew Morrison, age 27, and Claire Donovan, age 29, entered the Thunder Creek Trail System for an overnight backpacking trip. Both were experienced hikers employed as outdoor education instructors. They carried complete camping gear, GPS devices, first aid supplies, and emergency communication equipment. Weather forecasts predicted stable conditions. The pair established camp near Fisher Creek on their first evening. The following morning, Morrison left camp to filter water from the creek. Donovan remained at the tent organizing gear. After 30 minutes, Morrison had not returned. Donovan followed his route to the creek, located approximately 100 yards from camp. She found Morrison's water filter resting on a flat stone beside the creek. The filter was assembled and ready for use but showed no water inside. Morrison's water bottle sat beside it, caps removed, positioned upright. Morrison was not present. Donovan immediately contacted park authorities via satellite phone. Search teams arrived within 3 hours. They found Morrison's boots placed side by side on dry ground 50 yards from the water filter location. The boots were unlaced. They showed no mud or water despite sitting near a creek. Search coordinator Rebecca Hall wrote, "Boots positioned with deliberation, laces draped symmetrically, no indication of rapid removal or distress." Search efforts continued for 9 days. Morrison was not located. The case remains open. In October 2017, a retired geologist named Edward Chen, age 66, hiked the Sahel Arm Trail. Chen had conducted geological surveys in the Cascades for over 30 years. He carried standard hiking equipment plus specialized tools for rock sampling. Weather conditions were stable with clear visibility. Chen did not return as scheduled. Rangers found his geological hammer positioned handle up in a crack, between two boulders approximately 3.5 miles along the trail. The hammer was wedged firmly, requiring deliberate placement. Nearby, Chen's field notebook rested on a flat rock, closed with a stone placed on top as if to prevent wind from moving it. The notebook's pages showed no water damage. Chen's handwriting remained legible. The last entry, dated that morning, described routine geological observations with no indication of concern or distress. Search teams recovered Chen's backpack 2 days later. The pack hung from a tree branch at shoulder height, approximately 400 yards from where the hammer and notebook were found. The pack's contents, food, water, clothing, remained organized and dry. The pack appeared carefully hung, not thrown or snagged. Chen was never found. Across these cases, the pattern of item placement repeats with consistency. Objects rest upright or carefully positioned. They show no damage from weather or animals. They appear in locations accessible to search teams, but positioned in ways that require explanation. The items themselves provide no directional information about where the missing individuals went. They mark points where presence ended without indicating transition. Search and rescue protocols account for various scenarios when individuals become lost or injured. Standard patterns include items dropped along direction of travel, clothing removed due to hypothermia, equipment abandoned to reduce weight, possessions scattered by animals, or gear damaged by falls. The items recovered in Cascade Triangle cases do not match these patterns. Ranger Ann Holbrook, who has coordinated searches in the North Cascades for 18 years, addressed this discrepancy in a 2019 training seminar. According to seminar notes, she stated, "We train to recognize distress indicators in physical evidence. Torn fabric suggests struggle. Scattered items suggest panic or confusion. Damaged equipment suggests environmental exposure. In certain cases within this region, evidence presents differently. Items appear curated. This does not match standard lost person behavior. The phenomenon extends beyond small personal items. In several cases, larger objects, backpacks, sleeping bags, hiking poles, appear positioned with care." In June 2018, a backpack belonging to missing hiker Thomas Brennan was found hanging from a tree branch 7 feet above ground. The backpack's straps were arranged symmetrically. Contents remained organized. The positioning required deliberate effort and height that Brennan, who stood 5 feet 8 inches tall, could achieve only with difficulty. Wildlife activity does not explain these patterns. Park rangers and wildlife biologists note that animals disturb human items distinctively. Bears tear fabric and scatter contents. Smaller mammals chew straps and drag objects to dens. Birds may displace lightweight items. None of these patterns match the careful positioning documented in Cascade Triangle cases. Weather exposure also fails to account for item condition. Objects left outdoors in the Cascades typically show degradation within days. Rain saturates fabric. Wind displaces lightweight items. Temperature variations cause condensation. Yet items recovered after multiple days often appear clean, dry, and undisturbed. In several cases, paper materials, notebooks, maps, permits show no water damage despite significant rainfall between disappearance and recovery. The pattern challenges existing frameworks for understanding lost person behavior. Search and rescue professionals trained to interpret physical evidence as indicators of psychological state, environmental conditions, or injury status. The evidence recovered in these cases suggests intentional action, but provides no clarity about motivation, direction, or outcome. Rangers continue to document item characteristics carefully. Each recovered object is photographed, catalogued, and described in detail. The accumulation of similar observations across independent cases, different search teams, and multiple years creates a pattern that persists in official records. The objects remain, the explanations do not. Search and rescue dogs are trained to follow human scent across varied terrain and environmental conditions. The training process is rigorous and standardized. Dogs learn to distinguish individual scent from environmental odors, track scent trails through water and dense vegetation, and maintain focus despite distractions. Certification requires demonstrated competence in locating subjects under diverse scenarios. K9 units deployed in the North Cascades meet these standards. Their performance records show consistent success in search operations throughout the region. Yet within the triangular zone bounded by Mount Baker, Glacier Peak, and Cascade River Valley, K9 handlers document recurring behaviors that differ from standard search patterns. Dogs trained to follow scent until dispersal instead halt abruptly. They refuse to proceed beyond specific points. They exhibit stress responses, whining, backing away, or sitting, that handlers recognize as distress rather than tracking difficulty. These behaviors occur with enough frequency that handlers note them in official reports and discuss them informally during training sessions. In April 2012, search teams deployed to locate missing hiker Susan Garrett, aged 45, who had failed to return from a day hike on the Copper Ridge Trail. Garrett was an experienced hiker familiar with the area. Weather conditions at the time of her disappearance were clear and mild. Search coordinator Philip Ramos requested K9 assistance within hours of Garrett being reported missing. K9 handler Margaret Torres arrived with her German Shepherd Dakota, a certified search and rescue dog with 6 years of field experience and multiple successful recoveries. Dakota picked up Garrett's scent at the trailhead and followed it steadily for approximately 1.3 miles. The dog maintained clear tracking behavior, nose down, steady pace, consistent direction. At a point where the trail crossed a small creek, Dakota stopped. The dog sat, whined, and refused to cross the water despite encouragement from Torres. Torres noted in her report, dog exhibited clear scent detection to creek crossing. At water's edge, tracking behavior ceased. Dog showed stress response. Attempted crossing at 3 separate points along creek. Dog refused each time. Behavior inconsistent with water-related tracking difficulty. Creek depth, 4 to 6 inches. Width, approximately 8 feet. No unusual features observed. A second K9 unit, handler Robert Keene and his Labrador Retriever, Ranger, was deployed to the same location. Ranger tracked Garrett's scent to the identical point and exhibited the same refusal to cross. Keene wrote, dog followed scent trail to creek, stopped at water's edge, sat and whined, would not proceed. This behavior is atypical for this dog, who has crossed water obstacles significantly larger and more challenging in previous searches. Garrett's hiking pole was later found approximately 300 yards beyond the creek, standing upright against a tree. Garrett was never located. In August 2016, K9 handler Patricia Novak deployed with her Belgian Malinois Scout to search for missing hiker Gregory Walsh. Walsh had been hiking the Thornton Lakes Trail and failed to return. Scout is a highly trained search and rescue dog with certifications in wilderness tracking and has successfully located subjects in difficult terrain throughout the Pacific Northwest. Scout picked up Walsh's scent at the trailhead and tracked steadily for approximately 2.1 miles. At a point where the trail passed through a narrow corridor between 2 large boulders, Scout stopped abruptly. The dog backed away from the gap, whined, and circled back to Novak. Novak encouraged Scout to proceed. The dog approached the gap again, stopped at the same point, and refused to enter. Novak's report states, dog demonstrated clear tracking behavior to boulder corridor. Scent trail present and strong. Dog refused to proceed through gap despite encouragement and handler passage through gap. Dog circled to find alternate route. No alternate route available. Dog exhibited stress behavior. Boulder gap width approximately 3 feet. Height clearance approximately 6 feet. No visual obstructions. No unusual environmental features detected. Walsh's backpack was found 400 yards beyond the boulder corridor, positioned upright beside the trail. Walsh was not located. The pattern repeats across cases. Dogs track scent successfully until reaching specific geographic points. At these points, tracking behavior ceases. Dogs exhibit stress responses. They refuse to proceed despite handler encouragement, despite clear scent trails, despite training that emphasizes persistence. The points where refusal occurs often coincide with locations where missing persons' items are later recovered. K9 handlers discuss these incidents informally. In training sessions and after-action reviews, they note that the refusal behaviors do not match standard tracking difficulties. Dogs trained to work through water, dense vegetation, steep terrain, and adverse weather conditions refuse to proceed in areas that present no obvious obstacles. The refusal is immediate and consistent. In a 2018 training seminar, K9 handler Robert Keane stated, "These dogs are trained to work until scent disperses or until they locate the subject. They cross rivers. They climb slopes. They work in snow, rain, and darkness. When a dog refuses to proceed in clear, mild conditions on open trail, it indicates something we don't have frameworks to explain. The dogs themselves cannot provide explanation. They exhibit behavior that handlers interpret as distress, discomfort, or unwillingness. The behavior is consistent across different dogs, different handlers, and different incidents. It occurs at points that later prove significant in searches. Locations where items are found, where scent trails terminate, where missing persons were last present. Search teams adapt by attempting alternate routes or deploying additional K9 units. The results remain consistent. Different dogs refuse at the same points. The scent trails end without dispersal. The missing persons are not located beyond the refusal points. The pattern has become familiar enough that handlers note it as a discrete category in their reports. Standard terminology includes refusal to proceed, stress response at scent termination point, and behavior inconsistent with environmental factors. The language acknowledges observation without providing explanation. The dogs continue to refuse. The handlers continue to document. The searches continue to end without resolution. When survivors of Cascade Triangle incidents are located, their accounts include temporal inconsistencies that they cannot explain. Hours pass that they perceive as minutes. They describe waiting briefly when search records show extended periods. They estimate short distances traveled when GPS data indicates significant movement. The discrepancies are consistent, documented, and unexplained. In May 2009, hiker Laura Chen, age 36, went missing while hiking the Cascade Pass Trail. Chen was an experienced hiker familiar with the area. She carried a GPS unit, day pack, and standard equipment. Weather conditions were clear. Search teams located Chen 18 hours after she was reported missing. She was found sitting beside the trail approximately 3.2 miles from the trailhead, alert and uninjured. When rangers questioned her, Chen stated she had stopped to rest and had been waiting perhaps 20 to 30 minutes for someone to pass by. Her watch showed 18 hours had elapsed since she last checked the time. Ranger Thomas Vickers documented the interview. Chen's statement, "I sat down to drink water. The trail was quiet. I thought maybe 20 minutes passed. When the ranger arrived, I was surprised to learn it was the next morning. I don't remember the night. I remember sitting down in daylight and then the ranger was there in daylight." Chen showed no signs of head injury, hypothermia, dehydration, or medical conditions that would explain memory loss. Medical evaluation at a hospital showed no abnormalities. Chen's GPS log showed she had hiked to the location where she was found, then remained stationary. The log covered 18 hours. Chen perceived 20 minutes. In July 2013, two hikers, Robert and Jennifer Morrison, age 41 and 39, went missing while hiking the Thunder Creek Trail. The couple had been hiking together and became separated when Robert walked ahead briefly. Jennifer found Robert sitting on a log beside the trail approximately 400 yards from where they separated. Jennifer's account, "I found him sitting there. I asked where he'd been. He said he'd only walked ahead for a few minutes and sat down to wait for me, but I'd been searching for over an hour." Robert's account confirmed Jennifer's observation. He stated he had walked ahead, reached a clearing, sat on a log, and waited. He estimated 5 to 10 minutes had passed. Jennifer's GPS log and ranger timeline confirmed she had searched for 74 minutes before locating him. Robert showed no confusion about his identity, location, or activity. He simply could not account for the missing time. Medical evaluation revealed no abnormalities. In September 2016, solo hiker Marcus Brennan, age 52, was located after being missing for 32 hours. Search teams found him walking on the Cascade Pass Trail, approximately 2 miles from the trailhead. Brennan appeared calm and oriented. He stated he had been hiking for approximately 2 hours and had stopped occasionally to rest and take photographs. Brennan's GPS log showed he had been moving intermittently over a 32-hour period. His camera's timestamp data showed photographs taken across that time span. Brennan had no memory of 30 of those hours. He remembered starting his hike, taking a few photos, and then being approached by search team members. The intervening time was absent from his perception. Ranger Elizabeth Torres noted, "Subject exhibited no signs of distress, injury, or disorientation. He correctly identified his location, could recount his hiking plan, and showed appropriate concern when informed of the time discrepancy. He simply had no memory of the missing hours." These temporal compression events share common features. Subjects perceive short durations, minutes to a few hours, when actual elapsed time spans many hours or days. They show no awareness of the missing time. They exhibit no physical signs of having been exposed to the elements for the actual duration. They remain calm and oriented when located. Standard explanations for altered time perception include head injury, hypothermia, hypoglycemia, or psychological dissociation. Medical evaluations in Cascade Triangle cases consistently rule out these factors. Subjects show no injuries. Their vital signs are normal. Their blood glucose levels are appropriate. They demonstrate clear thinking and accurate recall of events outside the missing time period. The compression does not follow patterns seen in other altered consciousness states. Subjects experiencing hypothermia gradually lose awareness and typically have progressive symptoms before severe time distortion occurs. Subjects experiencing dissociative states often show confusion, disorientation, or inability to recall identity and purpose. Cascade Triangle subjects show none of these indicators. They simply have gaps in their temporal experience that they cannot explain. Search team members document this pattern carefully. Reports note, subject reports time perception inconsistent with elapsed time. No medical explanation for temporal discrepancy identified. And subject oriented and alert despite reported time compression. The language acknowledges the pattern without providing mechanism. The pattern has become familiar enough that rangers include temporal assessment in their initial evaluation of located subjects. Standard questions include, how long do you think you've been out here? When did you last check your watch? How long did it feel like you were waiting? The answers are documented alongside GPS logs, weather data, and medical assessments. The time continues to compress. The subjects continue to report accurate perceptions of brief duration. The records continue to show extended periods. The gap persists. Hikers in the Cascade Triangle separate from companions in ways that violate spatial and temporal probability. One person looks away briefly. When they look back, their companion is absent. The duration of diverted attention ranges from seconds to 3 minutes. The terrain offers good visibility. Weather is clear. No sounds of departure are heard. The separated individual vanishes as if transition from presence to absence occurred instantaneously. In August 2010, hikers Mark and Susan Parker, both age 48, were hiking the Thornton Lakes Trail. The couple had hiked together for over 20 years and maintained close proximity while traveling. At approximately 2:30 p.m., they stopped at a trail junction to consult their map. Mark stepped approximately 10 feet off the trail to photograph a viewpoint. Susan remained at the junction, looking at the map. Susan testified that she looked at the map for perhaps 20 to 30 seconds, then looked up to show Mark a route option. Mark was not visible. The viewpoint where he had been standing was approximately 10 feet away with clear sightlines. Susan called out immediately. No response. She walked to the viewpoint. Mark was not there. She could see 100 yards in all directions from the viewpoint. Mark was not visible anywhere in that radius. Susan returned to the junction and called continuously. After 5 minutes, she contacted rangers via satellite phone. Search teams deployed within hours. They searched through the night, using lights, and into the following days. Parker's daypack was found approximately 400 yards from the trail junction, positioned upright beside the trail. Parker was not located. K9 handler Robert Keene noted, dog tracked subject scent from junction to pack location. Scent terminated at pack. No dispersal pattern. Subject separation occurred within seconds according to witness. Distance traveled to pack location approximately 400 yards. Time available for travel less than 1 minute per witness statement. Movement speed required would exceed standard hiking pace. In June 2014, husband and wife, Thomas and Jennifer Brennan, aged 52 and 49 respectively, hiked the Thornton Lakes Trail. The couple had hiked together for over 25 years. They maintained close proximity while hiking and regularly confirmed each other's position. At approximately 3:30 p.m., the couple stopped beside a small creek to filter water. Jennifer began filtering water from the creek while Thomas stood on the trail approximately 15 feet away, waiting. Jennifer testified that the filtering process took perhaps 2 minutes. She stood, turned toward the trail with the filled water bottles, and Thomas was not present. Jennifer called out immediately. No response. The trail section was straight with clear sightlines for approximately 100 yards in both directions. The forest on either side was dense, but Jennifer could see into the trees for 20 to 30 feet. Thomas was not visible anywhere in the visible area. Jennifer searched both directions on the trail, calling continuously. After 10 minutes, she contacted rangers via satellite phone. Search teams arrived and established a search grid. Thomas's hiking pole was found approximately 600 yards down the trail, standing upright, leaning against a tree. Thomas was never located. Ranger Thomas Vickers wrote, "Witness account indicates separation period less than 3 minutes. Subject would have needed to travel 600 yards during that time to reach location where pole was recovered. Rapid movement of that distance unlikely for 52-year-old male on wilderness trail without triggering audible sounds that witness would have heard. No evidence of running. Pole positioned carefully, not dropped. These rapid separations share common features. They occur when one person's attention is briefly diverted. The duration of diverted attention ranges from seconds to a few minutes. The terrain at separation points offers good visibility. Weather conditions are clear. The separated individuals are experienced hikers who know to stay together and communicate. They make no sounds. They leave no tracks, indicating rapid movement. They are simply absent. Standard explanations for lost hikers do not account for this pattern. People who wander off trail typically do so gradually. They follow game trails, explore interesting features, or become disoriented over time. They do not vanish from open trail sections within seconds, while their companion is present and attentive. Medical emergencies such as heart attack or stroke could cause sudden collapse, but collapsed individuals remain visible where they fall. They do not move 400 to 600 yards before search teams arrive. The separated individuals in these cases are not found collapsed nearby. They are not found at all, or items belonging to them appear at distances requiring sustained movement. Psychological explanations such as dissociation or fugue states involve altered awareness but do not typically produce rapid, purposeful movement without the individual having any subsequent memory. The individuals in these cases do not reappear in confused states. They disappear completely or leave positioned items as evidence of presence followed by absence. Environmental factors such as sudden fog could reduce visibility, but witnesses report clear conditions. Even in fog, sound carries. Someone walking 400 yards through wilderness terrain produces audible noise, footsteps, movement through vegetation, equipment sounds. Companions listening attentively hear these sounds. In Cascade triangle separations, no sounds are reported. The rapidity challenges probability. For someone to move from trail to a point 400 to 600 yards away within 1 to 3 minutes requires sustained running. Running on wilderness trails is difficult, risky, and produces noise. Yet the separated individuals produce no sound, leave no running tracks, and disappear as if movement occurred instantaneously rather than through ordinary locomotion. Search team members document this pattern with careful language. Reports note rapid separation, brief temporal gap, distance inconsistent with available time, and absence of expected audible or visual indicators. The language acknowledges that the observed pattern does not match standard frameworks for understanding how people become lost. The pattern persists across cases separated by years and miles. Different companions witness similar events. Different search teams document similar evidence. The separations continue to occur despite awareness and caution. The mechanism remains unclear. The documentation accumulates. The questions persist. Experience in wilderness environments typically reduces risk. Familiarity with trail systems, understanding of weather patterns, knowledge of terrain features, and practiced navigation skills all contribute to safer outcomes. Search and rescue statistics consistently show that experienced hikers have lower rates of incidents requiring emergency response than novice hikers. Yet in the North Cascades triangular zone, experience does not provide the expected protection. Analysis of disappearance cases shows that individuals with extensive hiking backgrounds vanish at rates similar to or exceeding those of less experienced individuals. Local residents familiar with specific trail systems disappear. Regular visitors who have completed the same routes multiple times are not located. Professional outdoor educators and guides go missing. This pattern suggests that experience may alter behavior in ways that increase rather than decrease vulnerability. Familiarity creates confidence. Confidence reduces vigilance. The combination may expose experienced individuals to risks they do not recognize or appropriately assess. In April 2008, wilderness guide Catherine Morrison, aged 44, went missing while hiking alone on the Cascade Pass Trail. Morrison had guided hiking groups in the North Cascades for 16 years. She knew the trail system thoroughly, having completed the Cascade Pass route over 200 times as a guide and on personal hikes. She carried standard equipment and informed colleagues she would complete a routine conditioning hike. Morrison did not return. Search teams deployed immediately. They found Morrison's GPS unit positioned on a flat rock approximately 2.8 miles from the trailhead. The device was functional. Its history showed Morrison had hiked the trail as planned, reaching her turnaround point and beginning her return. The last recorded waypoint placed her less than half a mile from where the GPS was found. Morrison was never located. Search coordinator Philip Ramos noted, "Subject possessed exceptional knowledge of this trail system. Weather conditions were optimal. Subject carried appropriate equipment and followed established safety protocols. Disappearance occurred on familiar terrain during routine activity. Standard risk factors do not apply." In September 2011, a local resident named David Walsh, aged 57, went missing while hiking near his home. Walsh had lived adjacent to North Cascades National Park for 32 years. He hiked the surrounding trails regularly, often multiple times per week. He knew the terrain intimately and could navigate without maps. He informed his wife he would complete a familiar loop and return within 3 hours. Walsh did not return. Search teams found his water bottle positioned upright on a log beside a trail he had hiked hundreds of times. The location was less than 2 miles from his home. Walsh was never found. In June 2015, professional mountaineer and outdoor educator Sarah Chen, age 39, disappeared while conducting a solo training hike. Chen held certifications in wilderness first aid, navigation, and survival skills. She taught outdoor safety courses and led backcountry expeditions professionally. She carried comprehensive equipment, including multiple navigation devices, emergency communication tools, and survival gear. Chen's satellite communicator showed her hiking the Sahele Arm Trail, a route she knew well from previous climbs. Her last transmission indicated normal progress and stable conditions. Search teams recovered her GPS unit and emergency beacon, both functional, positioned together on a flat section of trail. Chen was not located despite extensive search efforts covering terrain she had traveled many times before. The pattern contradicts expected outcomes. Experience should enhance survival. Knowledge of specific terrain should prevent disorientation. Professional training should activate appropriate responses to difficulty. Yet in the Cascade Triangle, these protective factors appear absent. Analysis of disappearance cases shows that experienced individuals exhibit the same patterns as less experienced hikers. Their items appear carefully positioned. Scent trails terminate without dispersal. Time gaps emerge in survivor accounts. The outcomes remain unresolved regardless of skill level, familiarity, or training. Rangers observe that experience may contribute to vulnerability through altered decision-making. Familiar terrain encourages reduced caution. Known routes discourage constant navigation checks. Confidence in one's ability to handle difficulty may delay recognition of disorientation. The very factors that usually enhance safety may create exposure to risks that manifest differently in this region. In a 2017 search briefing, Ranger Ann Holbrook stated, We see guides, educators, and local residents disappear at rates that challenge our understanding of risk factors. These individuals possess knowledge and skills that should protect them, yet they encounter outcomes similar to novice hikers. This suggests that standard risk assessment models may not apply uniformly across all terrain. The pattern raises questions about how terrain familiarity interacts with whatever mechanisms operate within the triangular zone. Experienced hikers may recognize environmental cues that novices miss, yet they still disappear. They may respond to situations with practiced skill, yet items suggesting deliberate action appear afterward. They know when to stay put and when to move, yet they are not located. The confidence trap operates subtly. Experience reduces perceived risk. Reduced perceived risk allows behaviors that might be avoided in unfamiliar terrain. By the time circumstances reveal that familiar terrain is behaving differently, the individual may already be beyond the point where standard responses provide safety. The pattern continues. Local residents disappear on trails they walk regularly. Guides vanish on routes they lead professionally. The experience that should protect them does not. Search and rescue operations in the North Cascades follow established protocols developed through decades of experience and refined through analysis of successful and unsuccessful searches. These protocols define search areas based on probability of area calculations that consider terrain, weather, subject behavior, and physical capabilities. They guide resource deployment, determine search patterns, and establish when searches transition from rescue to recovery operations. Within the Cascade Triangle, these protocols encounter systematic failures. Probability calculations indicate high likelihood of locating subjects within specific areas. Searches of those areas yield positioned items but no subjects. Expanded searches covering terrain beyond where subjects should be capable of reaching produce the same results. Recovery operations extending weeks beyond standard rescue timeframes end without resolution. The failure pattern is consistent enough that search coordinators have adapted protocols specifically for disappearances within the triangular zone. These adaptations acknowledge that standard frameworks do not produce expected outcomes. In July 2010, search coordinator Rebecca Hall supervised operations to locate missing hiker Martin Torres. Aged 43, Torres had failed to return from a day hike on the Cascade Pass Trail. Weather conditions at time of disappearance were clear. Torres was moderately experienced and carried appropriate equipment. Hall deployed search teams using standard probability of area calculations. The calculations indicated 85% probability that Torres would be located within a 2-mile radius of his last known position. Teams searched that area thoroughly over 3 days. They found Torres's GPS unit position on a rock approximately 1.5 miles from the last known position. No other evidence of Torres was located. Hall expanded the search to a 5-mile radius based on theoretical maximum distance Torres could have traveled, given time elapsed and terrain difficulty. Additional teams searched for 4 more days. No additional evidence was found. Torres was not located. In her after-action report, Hall wrote, "Standard probability calculations did not predict outcome. Subject was not located within areas where calculations indicated high probability of detection. Item recovered suggests subject was present in searched area, but was not detected despite thorough coverage. Protocols designed for this terrain and subject type did not produce expected results." In September 2013, search operations for missing hiker Jennifer Walsh involved multiple agencies and extensive resources. Walsh, aged 36, had disappeared while hiking alone on the Thornton Lakes Trail. Search coordinator Thomas Vickers deployed ground teams, K9 units, and helicopter assets. Vickers documented search coverage meticulously. Teams covered 100% of the calculated high-probability area within 48 hours. They expanded coverage to areas with theoretical 10% probability of containing the subject. K9 units tracked Walsh's scent to a point where it terminated. Helicopter surveys covered terrain too steep for ground teams to access. After 12 days, no trace of Walsh had been found beyond her water bottle position beside the trail. Vickers noted, "We achieved comprehensive coverage of all areas where subject could reasonably be located, given available time and physical capabilities. We extended searches beyond reasonable parameters. Subject was not detected, This outcome challenges fundamental assumptions underlying search probability calculations. The systematic failure of probability calculations within the Cascade triangle suggests that factors not accounted for in standard models influence outcomes. These models assume subjects move according to physical capabilities, terrain constraints, and behavioral patterns documented in thousands of previous searches. They assume that comprehensive coverage of probable areas will locate subjects or evidence of subjects. In the triangular zone, subjects appear to be present in searched areas, evidenced by positioned items found during searches, yet they are not located. They appear to move distances that exceed calculated physical capabilities given available time. They leave no additional traces beyond carefully positioned single items. Search teams adapt by expanding search areas beyond standard parameters, increasing search duration, and deploying additional resources. The adaptations do not change outcomes. Extended searches locate no additional evidence. Expanded areas yield no subjects. The additional resources produce the same result: positioned items, terminated scent trails, and unresolved cases. Ranger Gerald Moss, who has supervised searches in the region for 22 years, addressed this pattern in a 2020 training session. According to session notes, he stated, "Our protocols work. We have hundreds of successful searches throughout the Cascades that demonstrate their validity. But within this specific zone, the same protocols applied with the same rigor produce different outcomes. We find evidence that subjects were present. We don't find the subjects. The pattern is consistent enough that we now brief teams differently for searches in this area. We tell them that standard expectations may not apply. The boundary where search protocols stop is not geographic, it is conceptual. It represents the point where established frameworks for predicting subject location and behavior cease to produce reliable results. It marks the transition from searches where outcomes match expectations to searches where positioned items and unresolved cases become the norm. Search teams continue to deploy. Protocols continue to be followed. Resources continue to be committed. The outcomes within the triangular zone continue to diverge from outcomes elsewhere. The boundary persists. The patterns documented in the Cascade triangle generate theories. Some invoke supernatural phenomena. Others suggest undiscovered predators. Some propose clandestine human activity. These theories share a common approach. They attempt to explain the unexplained by introducing elements not supported by evidence. This chapter examines what the pattern is not. The pattern is not attributable to wildlife predation. Large predators in the North Cascades, black bears, cougars, coyotes, leave distinct evidence when they attack humans. Torn clothing, blood, drag marks, cached remains, and signs of struggle appear at attack sites. Wildlife biologists document these patterns consistently across known predation events. Cascade triangle disappearances show none of these indicators. Items recovered are clean, undamaged, and carefully positioned. No blood or tissue is found. No predator tracks appear near positioned items. No cached remains have been located despite extensive searches. The absence of predation evidence is complete and consistent across cases. In addition, predators do not position items. A bear does not stand a water bottle upright on a log. A cougar does not hang a backpack from a tree branch at shoulder height. The deliberate placement patterns documented in search reports have no correlation with wildlife behavior. The pattern is not explained by criminal activity. Human predation leaves evidence distinct from wildlife predation but equally detectable. Abduction scenarios require transportation, which produces vehicle tracks, tire impressions, or disturbance to vegetation. Concealment of victims requires burial, which disturbs soil, or transport to secondary locations, which creates trails. Search teams in the Cascade Triangle find no vehicle tracks in areas where items are positioned. They find no disturbed soil suggesting burial. They find no trails indicating transport. The remote locations where many items appear are not accessible by vehicle and would require significant effort to reach while transporting an incapacitated person. Additionally, criminal activity typically shows pattern in victim selection. Age, gender, appearance, or behavior characteristics cluster in victim populations. Cascade triangle disappearances show no such clustering. Victims span ages from 20 to 66. Gender distribution is approximately equal. Physical descriptions vary widely. Hiking alone versus hiking in groups shows no predictive value. The pattern is not attributable to voluntary disappearance. People who choose to disappear typically prepare. They withdraw funds, gather supplies, and create plausible cover for their absence. They do not leave positioned items that ensure discovery of their disappearance. They do not abandon expensive equipment, GPS units, satellite communicators, cameras, in ways that facilitate search efforts. Cascade triangle subjects carry items suggesting intention to return. Day hikers pack light. Overnight hikers bring gear for planned duration only. GPS logs show routes consistent with stated plans. Communication with families and friends before departure indicates normal intention to return. The pattern does not match voluntary disappearance behavior. The pattern is not explained by environmental hazards standard to mountainous terrain. Hypothermia, dehydration, injury from falls, and disorientation occur in wilderness settings. These hazards leave evidence. Hypothermia victims often exhibit paradoxical undressing, removing clothing in terminal stages. Falls produce injuries visible on remains. Dehydration creates specific behavioral changes documented in survivor accounts. Cascade triangle subjects show none of these patterns when located alive, and positioned items show none of these indicators. Clothing is not removed or scattered. Items are not dropped along routes suggesting progressive weakness. No evidence of falls appears near positioned items. Survivors show no signs of exposure consistent with time elapsed. The pattern is not attributable to disorientation from magnetic anomalies. Some theories suggest localized magnetic field variations could affect navigation equipment and human orientation. Geological surveys of the North Cascades show no unusual magnetic characteristics. Compass readings are consistent with expected magnetic declination for the region. GPS units function normally and show accurate position data up to the point where they are found positioned. Additionally, magnetic anomalies would not explain positioned items, terminated scent trails, time compression in survivors, or rapid separations. The mechanism proposed does not account for the full range of documented patterns. The pattern is not explained by toxic environmental factors. Some theories propose exposure to toxins, natural gas seeps, volcanic emissions, plant compounds that could cause altered consciousness or physical incapacitation. Geological assessment shows no active volcanic activity in the area. No natural gas seeps have been identified. Plant toxins would require ingestion or contact, which would leave evidence in survivor blood tests or on remains. Survivors located within the zone show no toxic exposure in medical evaluations. Blood tests are normal. No unusual compounds are detected. The pattern does not match toxin exposure scenarios. The pattern is not attributable to mass hysteria or suggestion. The disappearances and associated phenomena are documented by professional search and rescue personnel, park rangers, and canine handlers who maintain consistent standards across the region. Items are physically recovered and photographed. Scent trails are tracked by certified dogs. GPS logs are extracted from electronic devices. The evidence is material, not psychological. Furthermore, many subjects who disappear are unaware of previous disappearances in the area. They are not influenced by suggestion or expectation. Their outcomes match the pattern regardless of prior knowledge. What remains after these explanations are excluded is a pattern documented through material evidence, professional observation, and consistent repetition across independent cases. The pattern is not explained by known hazards, criminal activity, wildlife, environmental factors, or psychological phenomena. The pattern is what the evidence shows it to be. Positioned items, terminated scent trails, time compression, rapid separations, and unresolved outcomes occurring with geographic consistency in a specific zone of the North Cascades. The absence of standard explanations does not require invoking unstandardized ones. It requires acknowledging that the pattern exists, that it is documented, and that it persists without explanation. The Cascade Triangle doesn't end with an answer. It ends where the records end. After 47 documented disappearances, after thousands of search hours, after positioned items and terminated scent trails, and time gaps that defy medical explanation, what remains is not clarity but boundary. The boundary between what is documented and what is understood. Across these chapters, certain features repeat. items positioned with care that suggest deliberate action at moments of absence, fog that arrives rapidly and clears quickly, bracketing separations that occur in seconds, dogs trained to track until scent disperses, instead refusing to proceed at specific points, time compression affecting survivors who perceive minutes when hours or days have passed, experience and familiarity providing no protection against outcomes that persist regardless of skill level. The pattern accumulates across decades. Ranger logs document details carefully, without speculation. Search reports note observations that do not match standard frameworks. Canine handlers record refusals that contradict training. Medical evaluations find no explanations for temporal perception gaps. Each case adds to the archive. None resolves the questions. What has been shown is not a single phenomenon, but a convergence of anomalies that cluster within specific geography. The passes that should provide crossing do not lead across. The terrain that should be navigable presents boundaries that search dogs recognize, but humans do not. The time that should progress linearly compresses in ways that subjects cannot account for. Rangers continue to patrol the trails. Search teams continue to deploy when hikers do not return. Protocols continue to be followed, adapted, and followed again. The outcomes within the triangular zone continue to diverge from outcomes elsewhere in the Cascades. The pattern is not legend, it is not folklore. It is documentation of events that occurred, were responded to, and were recorded by professionals trained to observe and report accurately. The evidence is material. The questions persist. If this examination has been useful, consider supporting the channel by liking and subscribing. New documentaries are released regularly, each following the same evidence-focused approach. If you have documented cases, field experience within this region, or archival material relevant to these patterns, you are invited to share it in the comments. Sometimes careful observation is the only tool that moves understanding forward. The passes remain on maps, the trails continue to be maintained, hikers continue entering the zone where mountain passes stop leading across. The triangle persists in ranger station conversations and search coordinator briefings. The documentation accumulates. The land offers no explanation, the records continue.